Tapping in as well.
Over the top. I mean, that was a full force shot to the temple. I mean, he's right now. So they wipe off his gloves, but you look at him like he's really feeling it right now. I mean, he probably has no idea where he is.
When I'm going to take your soul, and you're either going to give up or you're going to get knocked out. And unless you have that instinct, you just will never be a good fighter.
It's likely that one big shot's going to land if the guy's not throwing other shots. So I thought with less artillery in the air, less bombs in the air, that the guy would have a chance to get to later rounds.
Joe Rogan couldn't stop laughing while reacting to Jake Paul getting knocked out alongside Anthony Joshua, basically saying this was never a real fight to begin with, because Jake is used to boxing retired legends and MMA guys, not an actual Olympic-level heavyweight who lives and breathes elite boxing. And Rogan made it clear that Joshua isn't just skilled, but massively bigger, stronger, and operating in a completely different weight class. So from any honest boxing viewpoint, the ending was written before the opening bell, and the knockout didn't shock anyone. It just confirmed what everyone with common sense already knew.
Well, realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists.
After the fight, Anthony Joshua didn't sugarcoat anything and dropped a brutal truth, saying the knockout actually did Jake Paul a favor, because if it had dragged on, he would have dismantled him piece by piece, breaking him physically and mentally until there was nothing left. And Joshua made it clear the early finish spared Jake from far worse punishment, hinting that the ref stepping in wasn't mercy for him, but protection from a long, painful lesson inside a ring he was never truly ready for.
Fighting's not just physical, it's psychological. And when you understand the psychological warfare, I did say to you that, Jake, what's going to happen? I'm going to see a time when I'm going to take your soul, and you're either going to give up or you're going to get knocked out.
The moment Anthony Joshua's name got tied to a so-called fight with Jake Paul, the boxing world split right down the middle. Because for most people, this never looked like sport and always looked like a circus, with a size gap, experience gap, and pedigree gap screaming mismatch from every angle. As Joshua is a two-time heavyweight champion and Olympic gold medalist, while Jake is still figuring out the basics, making the whole thing feel less like a real challenge and more like a numbers-driven spectacle, which is exactly why critics rolled their eyes and labeled it entertainment over boxing. And after Joshua shattered Jake's jaw with a brutal knockout, Simon Jordan didn't hold back, blasting the event as another hit to boxing's already shaky credibility and proof that clout fights might sell tickets, but they leave the sport itself paying the price.
Industry, because straight after the fight, I heard the question being posed to Joshua, will he now fight Fury? And then my first thought was, after what I've seen, who cares? After that, who cares if Joshua fights Fury? I like Anthony Joshua immensely, Spencer. Any exchanges I've had with him, I think he comes across terrifically well. But I fail to see where it's taken him, other than hugely increasing his bank balance. You know, I really fail to see what this has done.
Well, it's done nothing, but he was going to fight in November, like I said, and he's just gone in there against Jake Paul. What has it done for his legacy? Absolutely zero. But it was, you know, he's earned a lot of money doing that. And he's going to go again, and he's going to fight possibly February, March, and then there's that Tyson Fury fight that's looming that could happen in September, whether Tyson Fury decides to come out of retirement or not come out of retirement. For Anthony Joshua, he's earned a hell of a lot of money. This is prize fighting, and that's what it's all about, and that's what he's done.
Simon Jordan doubled down by saying fights like this completely blur the line between real sport and pure spectacle, dragging the spotlight away from fights that actually matter. And he pointed out that Anthony Joshua has already secured generational wealth and a lasting legacy, so he doesn't need gimmick matchups to boost his name or bank account, adding that even if a long-talked-about Tyson Fury showdown never happens, Joshua is financially set for life, meaning if he chose to walk away tomorrow, it wouldn't shock anyone, and it certainly wouldn't cost him his place in boxing history.
Earning more than Joshua. That apart, Spencer, 6 rounds to get Paul out of there. Reputationally, how does it leave AJ?
Well, thankfully it didn't go to points, because I think that would have been a disaster for Anthony Joshua. I think that he needed to get the job done inside the distance, and he done it. Look, he could have done it at any given point. I think that he could have cut the ring off whenever he wanted to and got Jake Paul out of there. He took his time on that. He allowed Jake Paul to run around like a rabbit and throw the occasional shot from time to time. And I think he only landed one clean punch, didn't he, Anthony Joshua? And that was the one that broke his jaw in 2 places.
But, I mean, you said, did you not, to us in this very studio the other day, he's got to get him out of there in round 1.
I did.
Otherwise, what are we seeing?
Exactly that. And I think what we saw there was a little bit of entertainment. And that was pretty much it, but not entertainment that many people enjoyed, if I'm honest. I think that people wanted to see a demolition.
Joe Rogan went full respect mode on Anthony Joshua, pointing out that the man is freakishly fast, insanely athletic, and hits with lights-out power, explaining that Joshua moves like someone far lighter than a heavyweight while carrying the kind of one-shot force that can end a fight in seconds. And Rogan called him a nightmare opponent because of how effortlessly he closes distance and shuts exchanges down, making it painfully obvious that for crossover fighters trying to play boxing, stepping in with someone like Joshua isn't bold or brave. It's completely unrealistic at any serious level.
Boxer, but this is a giant Olympic gold medalist heavyweight. I mean, Anthony Joshua is
Here's the thing that nightmares are made of.
And he's got that one-punch nuclear power. One punch.
Adam Booth didn't sugarcoat anything in his breakdown, but he did give credit where it was earned, pointing out that Jake Paul actually made Anthony Joshua miss a few times, which might not sound wild until you realize how rare that is against an elite heavyweight. And Booth said Jake's movement, positioning, and discipline forced Joshua to reset instead of just walking him down, making it clear this didn't mean Jake was winning, but it did show real progress, because fighters like Joshua don't miss by accident. It takes timing, preparation, confidence, and calm under pressure. And Booth highlighted Jake's improved footwork and composure as legit positives, while still reminding everyone of the hard truth that none of those moments changed the final reality. Because once Joshua found his opening, his class, power, and experience took over and decided the fight exactly the way champions do.
Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul shared a ring. Your takeaways from the 6 rounds that we saw, presuming you watched?
I was impressed with Jake Paul. I thought that, following on from what we're saying, right? A few years ago, he was on Disney as a kid, acting up, and has decided to become a professional fighter. That takes balls, but he's obviously striving to be as good as he can be. You can see that in the way that he moves, the way that he is developed in how he's punching and performing. But to make a 2-time world heavyweight champion that's still live, AJ's still got something about him, to make him miss in such an accomplished manner. All right, so at times he was jumping out and running around, but there were times when he was well in range and still making AJ unable to land a clean, solid shot. He deserves a lot of respect for that. And then the shot that actually finished the fight, that broke his jaw quite badly, didn't put him out. That shot he threw with serious intention has put a lot of professional heavyweights to sleep. He didn't go to sleep. He actually finished on his knees, didn't he? Laughing and spitting blood out of his mouth. So, like they say, it's a special type of crazy and a special type of brave to do it. But I actually, hats off to him, because he showed that he's developing some accomplished little skills in there to look after himself. The size difference is always going to fatigue him.
I know everyone will come with the idea that, AJ should just go in there 1 round and smash him to bits, and that should be it was a big ring, right? Perhaps he could have cut the ring off a bit better, but would I be right in saying that regardless of skill level, if you forget about that with the 2 for a second, if someone is on the back foot and on their bike and doing what Jake was doing, it's difficult no matter who you are, no matter the kind of separation in skill level.
It's a big ring, and you've either got to run at him and look like a novice yourself, or just take your time and understand.
After the dust settled, the spotlight somehow swung to Logan Paul posturing toward Anthony Joshua and talking revenge for his brother, even floating the idea of fighting him. But analysts shut that down instantly, saying this wouldn't just be a mismatch, it would be pure comedy. Because unlike Jake, who actually trains full-time with real boxing coaches and at least operates at a basic pro level, Logan doesn't have the commitment, polish, or skill to even pretend this belongs in a ring, and most agreed that a Logan versus Joshua fight wouldn't be sport or even spectacle. It would cross straight into farce, offering zero competitiveness while dragging boxing's reputation even further through the mud, which is why the consensus was brutal but clear. Jake showed he belongs in professional boxing in some capacity. Logan absolutely does not, and pushing that matchup would only fuel more backlash about where the sport is headed.
Would be more of a mismatch than Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Because at least Jake Paul has taken boxing or has trained with real boxing trainers and real boxers. Whereas Logan Paul, you know, he did that exhibition with Floyd, and Floyd's a little guy. Not saying a little guy can't thump, because Floyd really gave him some two pieces with no sides, right? But at the same time, you take his friend, Floyd's friend, Anthony Joshua, and get hit by him and see what happens. The same thing. Probably worse, because I think Logan, you know, he's a little taller than Jake. And because he's a little taller than Jake, he may think he's a little stronger than Jake, which I don't know which one's true or not. I don't think it makes a difference. But because he may feel that way, he may want to go in there and try to bang it out with AJ. And if that happens, it's going to be a lot quicker. See, that 6 rounds it took AJ to finally catch Jake. It took that way because Jake was on that bicycle, moving, being elusive, trying to come in and then come out. He tried to do a very poor man's Alexander Usyk, right? And it didn't work for him. Logan ain't gonna do that. Logan's gonna come in throwing punches and bunches like he did with Floyd, trying to get him in there and, you know, do all this stuff. And what's gonna happen as soon as AJ lines him up, sets his punch, he's gonna hit Jake and he's gonna break Jake down.
Sugashan O'Malley looked past the knockout and zeroed in on Jake Paul's mindset, saying the trash talk and confidence everyone mocked weren't arrogance, but survival tools. Because when you're stepping into the ring with a 2-time Olympic champion like Anthony Joshua, you don't get there quietly or timid. And Molly explained that Jake needed that loud self-belief to mentally armor himself for the moment, adding that confidence and self-talk aren't fake bravado, but necessities when the odds are stacked sky high. And without that mental edge, Jake Paul wouldn't have lasted under that kind of pressure at all, arguing that critics completely ignore how brutally hard it is to share a ring with someone of Joshua's caliber. And while the loss was decisive, Molly believes Jake's approach showed he understood the challenge, respected the danger, and exposed just how massive the psychological battle is when facing an elite heavyweight.
Out in the ring.
Jake was shooting double legs too.
Shooting double legs, nice
duck
ones,
unders.
with ankle picks, duck unders. But dude, God, people, I see so much people talking shit on the fight, which, dude, what the fuck did they expect? Like, Jake was hyping himself up, saying he's gonna win. Dude, that's self-belief. He needed that to go in. He needed that to get himself into the ring. You know what I'm saying? He just needed that.
What do you think about the sticking the tongue out?
Dude, he's a showman. This is a fucking YouTuber that switched to pro boxing.
Yep.
And he's fighting Anthony fucking Joshua.
He's
He made
entertaining.
$90 million, $7.5 million per minute. Nate Diaz says that boy don't work hard enough. This girl in the UFC said Jake Paul shot more double legs in boxing match than I did in my UFC career. Ryan Garcia said he's a runner, he's a track star. Al Germain said this is a clown show. Josh Hammond said, dude, it's like, what did they expect? They expect him to go in there and look like a clean fucking Floyd versus Manny Pacquiao. Two of the, you know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck?
You see the aftermath, like his jaw and everything. Fuck.
Jake Paul's broken jaw. Jake has to get wired shut for 7 days or something like that.
Yeah, like titanium
Tim had to do
plates.
7 weeks.
Yeah, Tim says that was the worst thing he's ever gone through.
7 weeks. Tim broke his jaw in Montana. Tried to go to the hospital. Hospital said the surgeon's out of town. So now he has to. So he's fucking goes like a week without even getting surgery. At least Jake was able to probably get it like next day, that same day. But it's like all the people hating on Jake. It's crazy. Connor said Jake is stupid and will be altered permanently from this bout. I look at it. It's inspiring seeing what he does, because I know how much like he's putting in work. He's doing legitimate fight camps. He's doing sparring. He's doing rounds. He's eating. He's doing everything
Teddy Atlas shut down all the conspiracy noise by explaining that his call about the fight lasting a few rounds came from real boxing logic, not any staged nonsense, pointing out that Anthony Joshua was coming off a long layoff, a brutal knockout loss in his previous fight, and the kind of mental hesitation that naturally lingers after that, especially for a fighter who isn't known as a fast starter. And Atlas added that the bigger ring gave Jake Paul extra space to move early, which fit perfectly with Jake's actual game plan of surviving, moving, and stretching the fight. But once Joshua started applying real pressure, Atlas said the air got thin fast because Jake hit a level of physical and mental intensity he had never experienced before. And between Joshua's pressure, Jake's muscular build burning fuel quickly, and the reality of elite heavyweight boxing, the tank emptied, leading Atlas to make one thing crystal clear. This fight was real, it followed real boxing rules, and it ended exactly the way boxing reality always decides these moments.
I wasn't sure if there was going to be a silent agreement. I wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that we'll spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why I said it's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, we'll play a little bit and then we'll get a little more and, whatever. So that was part of it. But there was real parts. Say, that's the fixed part. That's the WWE part. That's where the people, and I'm with you. I get it if you want to think that. Here's why I picked rounds, and this is what I think I saw, and I know that in my mind I saw, was the factors that a lot of people didn't think about. 15 months off. And there was going to be some ruts. There was going to be some hesitation. There was going to be some time. He got knocked out by Dubois freaking 15 months ago. There were going to be ghosts in the attic. I don't care who you're fighting. You get in the ring again. It's going to take a minute to exercise those ghosts. The rust. You want to call it rust, whatever. It's going to take 5-6 rounds to get rid of the rust. But it's going to, the doubt, the self-doubt, the being in the ring for the first time with nothing in between after being knocked out. That was going to be a play. And then the size of the ring, 22 by 20. It's usually 20 to 20 is pretty usually around average. And it's 22 by 20. More room to elude, more room to move around, right? I thought maybe go in there with track.
Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi didn't pull a single punch in their brutally honest take, saying the fight ended in the worst possible way for Jake Paul, who walked away with a jaw broken in 2 places and missing teeth, yet somehow still failed to earn respect from boxing fans. With Algieri pointing out that fans weren't entertained because Jake never truly tried to fight, arguing he would have been better off charging forward and going down swinging, even if it meant an earlier knockout. Because fighters earn respect by actually attempting to win, not by surviving. And he compared it to real wars where effort matters more than outcome, while Paulie Malignaggi piled on by explaining that Jake's hit-and-run approach was doomed from the start, since constant movement drains the legs, especially in a big ring, and only delays the inevitable when you don't have elite boxing skills, adding that at a novice level you can either fight hard or run, but you can't do both, and Jake shows. Survival, a choice both analysts agreed hurt his credibility with boxing fans far more than getting knocked out early ever would have, with Chris Algieri summing it up as a loss that damaged reputation as much as it damaged the body.
Yeah, an Ngannou type fight. Yeah, Ngannou, he's got balls. Ngannou's got balls, man. He went out there and he tried to fight, tried to win. Jake Paul didn't try to win at any point during the fight. He was just trying to survive. I think that's actually ultimately going to hurt him with boxing fans.
What do you think, Paulie? I mean, you talked about the in and out kind of style, kind of hits and runs. And you said that, A, it runs out your legs. He was exhausted a couple rounds into the fight. And B, it only saved him for so long.
He doesn't have the boxing skills to box on the move anyway. Once I saw the big ring, I knew he was going to run for his life. When you're that much of a novice, which obviously it's not even an insult to him, it's just lack of experience. But when you're that much of a novice, you either know how to run for your life or fight all out. You don't have that in between yet. You haven't developed enough of that in between boxing acumen to really pull that off. And so what ends up happening? You're either going to fight your ass off and you'll last a minute. Chris, you're being generous. Round 2, he would have got knocked out in round 1 if he would have fought. But at least he would have fought. He would have got the respect of the people and more importantly, the boxing community instead of these clowns that follow him and are still defending him. Now what happens is you didn't get any respect as a fighter. You didn't get any respect as a fighter because you didn't try to fight at all. If he would have, I was watching that through 2-3 rounds. I'm thinking to myself, this guy would do this for 8 rounds if he can. If he can do this for 8 rounds, absolutely not fight at all, absolutely not engage a single time in 8 rounds, he will actually do this. And he'll do it shamelessly. And that's the problem. That's the problem. The shamelessness of his approach to the fight. You're gonna be a fighter, then don't make an ass out of the whole sport, out of the whole business, and out of yourself first and foremost. Because in the end, what happens? You got his jaw broke anyway. So what ends up happening? What's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna get hurt, you're gonna get knocked out? You got hurt and you got knocked out anyway, but you just prolonged the inevitable and you got no respect out of it now. Because nobody's respecting that kind of performance. Nobody's respecting a performance where you were totally content to steal money from everyone.
In the end, this felt written in stone from day one. A mismatch on paper that unfolded exactly the same inside the ring, where Anthony Joshua's size, speed, and terrifying one-punch power told the whole story, while Jake Paul showed flashes of growth, real heart, and smarter defensive movement that prove he's learning, just not anywhere near ready to cross the massive gap to an elite Olympic-level heavyweight. And the fallout splits the boxing world into 2 loud camps, with critics calling these crossover fights a circus that chips away at boxing's credibility, while supporters give credit for the mental toughness it takes to even step up and test yourself against the real thing. But no matter where you stand, the result hammered home the same cold truth every expert kept repeating. Because in boxing class, experience and power always win, period. And that's it for today's video. Stay locked in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Fighters Arena Pro for the latest boxing news. And much love from the Fighters Arena Pro team.